Okay, I will call the meeting in order. Sorry for coming in late.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we reopen the regular session, and there were no patron comments. We are to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. New business, storm recovery update. Who's first?
Oh, yeah.
I got a thumb drive here, I need to plug this in.
And then I'll hand you that mouse. You need to be in control. Go grab the mouse while you open that up. Can you do that?
It's hard to do when they take the mouse away from you.
You got two.
Make it bigger.
Yep. Where?
You'll have the mouse too.
Hey, knock it down. You might be able to.
Just to let you know, full screen. He had returned.
Well, good evening. Appreciate letting me come back and talk to you. This is Justin Roth. He's one of my associates at the office, so he's helped on your project as well. So we both came down today, walked through some more buildings and had some meetings this afternoon, and we got some things lined out for tomorrow morning as well. So I appreciate again the opportunity to sit here and bring you an update. First thing I want to go over is just kind of a brief agenda. So we want to talk to you a little bit about temporary administrative office / ECC, so over in the basement of the primary building. Then we want to touch a little bit on the high school funding, which when we say that, that's really about kind of what we're identifying as cost, and then a little bit about maybe kind of how you can achieve that. And then Mike Wright is also here to also help supplement that discussion about actual funding itself. Kind of the high school approach, we're going to revisit some of that. We've explored some additional information. We're going to share that with you. Then we want to talk about the next steps. So we've got quite a few activities outlined between now and the end of this year. So lots of meetings and lots of work ahead of us. But we've got a plan starting to coalesce on that, and we'll share that with you as well. Kind of the big takeaways really is what we want to try to get at is wrap our head around. We had the community meeting. We've had lots of discussions since then, more exploration. But we kind of had some clear direction from surveys and from those discussions on what approach we wanted. We had an A, a B, and a C approach. We pretty much immediately ruled kind of out the A, which was kind of stay the course, and C was really kind of taking a pretty heavy hand on it. So B was kind of where we were at. So we've continued to kind of develop down that pathway, and we'll share that with you. Trying to clarify some of the priorities, as we're going to share some cost magnitude on these as well. So we really want to get your input on that, kind of prioritize that. And then if there's some of these that maybe need to be slated as future phases or something, we want to have that discussion as well. And then ultimately, we're working towards trying to get scope defined, a project design, funding in place, get all those things in alignment so they can come together with bond language. And should we decide to choose to go with bond to help pay for this improvements. So we're gonna kind of move through this fairly quickly. This first part is the ECC/temporary administrative offices. Currently, the district's releasing space across town for those facilities. There's been some recent changes in the leases. There's, always kind of a sense that there may or may, that owner could change their mind and kind of boot you guys out of there, and then you're gonna be looking for some other place to go for administrative offices. So that's kind of part of this behind it, but we see there's, I think, an opportunity to try to get administrative offices back on campus. This is the actual lower level of the primary building. We toured this after the last board meeting, so this is the lower level there that we walked through. This is an empty, well, it's not empty, but it's an unfinished storage area currently. So we walked through that. That's this yellow spot, so the bigger picture of that. So what we wanted to do though is there's a need to expand early childhood. So we worked closely with their leadership and the director over there to go through a plan. So we wanted to look at this, how can it have a future life after a temporary administrative office? Because that's really the payoff here, is to try to take potential dollars today, whether they're insurance dollars or FEMA dollars, and leverage them forward and get probably 80% of this space built out using that mechanism, instead of coming back later and fitting out that space from scratch and having all of that basically on your responsibility to pay for it. So this side over here, this diagram, is what it would eventually appear to be in the end as ECC classrooms. So you've got this large room here, this classroom here, so there's 4 classrooms in there. And we did maximize this area, and I'll talk about it a little bit. There is a small space currently in this corner, which sits right here. But when we worked around that space, we weren't able to maximize the 4 classrooms, so you can get 20 children in there, which is going to be with 2 instructors. After that, you start to have to add additional staff. But with that corner not being available to put into the mix, we couldn't actually max this out. We were coming up just a little bit short of that, and that'd be a real limiting factor if you want to max out your capacity and still be able to have certified facilities.
So what is that corner at this time?
That's a small room right now. It's about 300 square feet, and they can't remove that room now, but once this becomes available, then they have an opportunity to find a space for that. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it is part of their the program that they currently have in that lower level. But they need it for now, but at the time, once if this does come to fruition, as administration leaves, we go back to their home over the old senior high, and we fit this out to early childhood, then that space would be relocated elsewhere. I think it's on that lower level still, because that's a 300 square foot room. You can kind of find opportunities for smaller rooms than you can 1,000 square foot classroom. So we got the 4 classrooms. This is that entrance piece. We're still utilizing all the existing entrances that are there. This comes into a check-in area, so that we set up with all the electronics necessary for the check-in, and a secondary means of the security there. This is a storage room. That little space right there is going to be a closet for some IT, so that'll be necessary in the future, and it'll also be necessary if you move forward now as a temporary office. So then when you transition to where it needs to be for the administrative office, so we wanted to figure out the ultimate solution first, and then backfill it with the offices that's necessary for admin. In the future, the dark walls here on this diagram, that's the only thing you're going to be rebuilding, is those dark walls in the future. All this other stuff's going to be leveraged and built today, basically in today's dollars as well. So it'll be more expensive in a few years down the road if you decide to do that. So then jumping over here, this is how we backfilled it with the administrative function. This room here would be a nice meeting room, so it's for leadership meetings, teacher development, potentially boardroom, if you need it as a boardroom, or any other type of meeting space. So that's a good sized room that would be available. And then out here, you still are going to use this as the main entry into the space. This door here will primarily be closed. It could be used just as an exit We have a SRO officer kind of camped out in this corner, open office spaces in this area. This is kind of the reception, so watching the front door and that first point of contact. And then this is an office space here. And then again, back in this classroom area, minimal walls built. We're going to build these 3 walls essentially, create those 3 private offices that are necessary. Then there's some taking use of the rest of this open area again with systems, furniture, just open desk, open workstations. And then this space back here, primarily going to be storage. It will also act as a break room for now, because remember it's going to have this notch taken out of it in the early use as an office. We would look to try to put all these restrooms in as they are needed. So come back over here, early childhood, each of the rooms has a restroom facility. We would like to try to put those in. That is something that if we move forward with this, we can identify things like this and maybe get separate pricing for that, so then you can kind of see where you're at on pricing and you can decide if you want to incorporate those or not. Likewise with storage cabinetry, we are showing storage cabinetry for the final ECC use. You know, there could be some of this that could be purchased today that would be used. But again, some of that, if we wanted to watch the cost on this up front, we can get separate pricing and you all can be the final decision maker on those things. So that's, these plans are they're kind of ready to roll. It's just we need a confirmation or some direction that this might be something that we want to move forward with.
So
So
there's
looking-
enough office space there for everybody?
Yes. Yeah, we work closely with Dr. Jones and her leadership team as well after we figured out the ECC side. So kind of looking at some of the specifics here, we would need 2 to 3 weeks to get all the rest of the engineering and the documents done. And we will essentially engineer and design this for the ECC use, and not specific to the admin office uses. I mean, it'll function for the admin office uses, but we want to set it up so most of this stuff can stay for early childhood. So if you would go in there, for example, and you got sprinklers a couple feet off the wall instead of centered in the room, in the office, we're going to put them where they need to be for the future use. So, but 2 to 3 weeks to finish the drawings. Work with Brock Miller. They're going to need at least 10 weeks to try to get this thing executed and implemented once they would get cut loose. So we're 12 to 13 weeks out from having something so that administrative could move out of those leased spaces. We are estimating this is just a rough magnitude of cost, but the all-in would be around $690,000-ish. That's at roughly $148 per square foot.
And how much of that, to go back to the 2 pictures, so how much of that would be stay for the early childhood and how much of it,
Right,
and I
right. I mean, that we kind
how
of
much
built.
of it is for the picture on the left?
Yep, these walls that make these 3 offices, those walls would be removed when the admin goes away.
Right.
This office, this wall right here, and this office right here, and these 2 walls here would be removed. So really minimal amount of removal. You know, then there would be, you know, some refreshing of the space that would be needed, you know, once it.
Okay, but putting them in is where it's part of your 697.
Correct.
How much?
Oh, how much of that is the,
What is the
total?
difference in the
Yeah.
cost from building the early childhood piece of it, and then the cost that's taken to convert to center hall?
right, to go from here to there.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know that I actually isolated those costs out, so, no, we,
I,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
right,
Yeah.
I understand that. That's what I was curious to see.
Correct.
Well, and we'll have an added, when we switch to early childhood, we'll still have an added cost,
Yes, you would have to, at that point, take these walls out
and add the dark walls, right?
and then add those dark walls, yes, so there would be a little bit of cost at that point.
And yeah, do you know that number?
Oh, I think we did kind of discuss that piece of it, and I think that would be 75,000-ish, something in that range, to undo and get it back to here, but the delta to add that this
undo,
adds to it versus just building it like this, I don't know that number.
Would the 75 include the undoing or that? and-
Undo and
And
Yeah,
the
the
walls?
black walls.
Yes, correct, yeah.
Okay.
So this includes the plumbing and everything that you would have to put the restrooms down in there?
Yeah, we would include that in there, and yes, we can identify those costs, yes.
The HVAC, IT,
HVAC, IT, we will have to modify some sprinkler systems. So yeah, new flooring, new ceilings, those types of things, so. We will be cognizant of the final usage of the space when we recommend those finishes to you. So that, for the most part, those can remain, if we want to do it as much as possible.
and then we
Yeah,
kind
for
of
a-
did a breakdown also, just trying to estimate what we're going to spend if we continue renting. Do you care if I share those numbers with the board, or is,
Yeah.
do you have that coming later?
No, I don't have those, I don't think I have that in
And
there.
these are just estimates based on the bills that we've been paying, and it's the 6 months that we were under the first lease, and then another 18 months
okay.
after that.
Yes, Dr. John.
So the top is a projection based on the first 2 lease agreements, and if the lease agreement, the third or fourth lease agreement would go up to that first amount. The bottom scenario is if we can continue to stay at that rent-free month that we're currently under for the second lease. So there's a difference there, because we don't know if that rent will go up or not. And this is if the building is not sold and it is still available to us.
My question is, like, for example, your internet figure here, if you move back on campus, does that completely zero out?
That would be an IT question.
Are you talking about for where you currently are at?
We're paying,
Yeah, that would zero out.
because we're paying for a separate service, because we're not on campus, so we're on Spectrum. It's Spectrum. It's terrible. It's from
We're on Spectrum right now, we'll be getting rid of that, we won't need that when you guys come back. It'll just be an extension of our existing network.
Thank you.
Sorry, hard to hear.
Craig, when you went to that meeting to get the cost to 2,000, was there estimated that they give you that was gonna be for 6 months or
6 months, yes.
6 months, okay?
So that was gonna be my question, that would take us through February, about February completion date, because our lease is through March, if I did correctly. February, December, January.
Yeah, we're gonna, let's just say, yeah, the rest of October for us to get it, and then the 10-week, a couple weeks of bidding, 10 weeks, so yeah, it's probably another, yeah, November,
And
December,
they- and they did
for
say if
sure.
we finished earlier, got that done early, they wouldn't let us out with 30 days notice.
Okay. Thank you.
This is a question that I don't know if anybody can answer, maybe Candy. Is any of this project possible to fall under a FEMA guideline?
Yes, we're gonna follow the admin, temporary facility under what we call category B. It's an emergency management type project. And we will follow it with your temp site. And then they will pay
So
they'll
is
pay your
that-
lease that you're in right now.
Okay,
And then they will pay for we're gonna present to them the justification of why we're moving back to the school and why you're using that facility. And then we'll present what all modifications you have to do to FEMA so we can get that covered for you.
So best case, they cover 75%.
Correct.
That include utilities, can't you?
I'm sorry.
Utilities also beside the lease?
Utilities are, well, to implement them inside the building, yes, like if you're, the plumbing and all that, yes, that will be a part of that, project, it'll be one piece.
thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, yeah, so some direction on this, maybe before the end of the evening, or if you all need to think about that, that's fine. Otherwise, we can roll through the rest of this and circle back to some of these if you want. Okay, great. So we wanted to, this is kind of just revisiting a little bit of what we had already pre-shared. Some of this was at that community session. So the A approach we had really was just kind of renovate. The B is where we were kind of laying, and that's a little bit of demolition and reconstruction, some new construction, and some pretty good, significant renovation of the interior of the high school. So we really do want to make sure that we transform it into a much better learning environment. And then the C, like I said, we kind of ruled that one out. So this is a reminder, that's kind of where we are. So this B option, it says right here, option A, so it's all of these elements essentially, plus these other elements, except for these ones in yellow. We've isolated those out separately. So either way, we're about 58 to 63 million on that, depending on those yellow items, just as a recap. So then what we've started to do is we looked at programmatically, you know, that's basically a list of all the various spaces that's going to be required of a modern day high school. So that's where we're looking at this. So existing, you have 108,400 square feet of space. There's this portion over here on top that we're calling it as a demo. So that's that 200, 300 wing. So we're going to be demoing that, and then plus a portion of that library in that area, in the classrooms that are stacked up there. So we feel that that portion of that building's got some damage to it. Now, whether that's damage that was previous and exacerbated by the tornado, that's still, I guess, for FEMA and some of them to figure that out. But either way, we've got about 32,000 square feet we're anticipating we're going to tear down. So that leaves us 76,000. And to get to the program space tells us we need to be at 127,000 square feet. So that's an addition of 50,850 square feet. That's kind of how we get some of that math, and then that'll manifest itself back when we talk about some costs here. So looking at these elements, we got the 127,000. You know, one way of looking at it is this base building over here. You know, a gym addition would be nice to have on that. So you have your competition gym, and then you also have practice gyms. Makes the space just much more functional, more usable. And then what this is actually, it was called PAC, a Performing Arts Center, which would kind of coalesce all the fine arts into a group. So that's what that block is. And it's kind of rough order of magnitude of cost. So 35 million, but it doesn't have that expanded gym, or it doesn't have that pack element. Okay, so you expand the gym, we're at 42.5, and you do all of those things rolled up for $56.5 million. So then we say, well, what do we do? How are we going to accomplish this? So we break it down, and you may have more up-to-date numbers now than I do. So, but let's just assume on the insurance side in this scenario, we say there's going to be $15 million of insurance that's going to be able to be used to accomplish the renovations to this high school, whether it's additions or renovations. Okay, it's going to need to be supplemented. So this is running the scenario where a $40 million bond is going to produce $40 million, and that's got some costs associated with that. And Mike Reich is here this evening, and we'll kind of circle back to that here in a little bit. But you take the two elements that we know that are kind of controllable. Okay, we know they're going to happen. Take the FEMA out of it, because we don't know, it's to be determined at this point. And then if there is FEMA money, there's an owner match to that. That's that 25% that we're talking about. So we can't really control that at this point. But, you know, is it going to happen? You know, I think there's a probability that they're going to chip in and help here. But we don't know enough to be able to tell you to put that in the formula and make a decision. So then the 15 to 45, that's about 55 million. So, and we just talked about kind of the numbers for the B option. So this is within that slot there for that project. So then I'm going to turn this over to Justin. Justin's going to walk you through, again, some of these diagrams. You've kind of seen variations of them, but we do have new information in here, and we're going to start to kind of part it out a little bit for you, and we can have some discussions about that. But all of these tie back to everything we talked about so already.
So I'll introduce myself again, Justin Roth. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Representing Staff Architects, and I'm going to be more involved with the project, so I'll likely be down here quite a bit more. So So I have been working, in the background on developing the schemes thus far, the three schemes you saw, the A, B, and C. And we've taken that B scheme up to that next level. And so the first few slides here are gonna set the stage of kind of our thinking of what brought us to that point. And then we'll talk a little bit about how those budget numbers we just discussed apply to each piece of that. So the first thing that we look at is, there obviously was some pretty heavy storm damage to some of the infrastructure, not just to the high school, but to other areas on campus, to the point where we don't feel like they're inhabitable, to where there's life safety challenges with those pieces. So those are the red dashed areas of the 200, 300 wing and the maintenance building. We also have some other either underutilized or some structural damage that's obvious, where you might actually see a crack in the wall, where you can actually see the outside from the inside kind of a thing going on. So there's a lot of unknowns at the library. There's a couple spots over here in the music spaces and the lower level off the cafeteria, where it might be, because those spaces are underutilized, it may not be appropriately designed proportionally for their use anymore. Maybe it would be a better idea to go ahead and demolish those spaces too, and start over with a clean slate for those. Then we also, this building's been added onto over time since the 50s. It seems like there's a project every decade. And with all those different additions, there's been some really unusual circulation patterns that have developed with the stairways and the elevators and those sorts of things. So we'd really like to take another look at those spaces, kind of the connectors, if you will, and look at those and see if we can reimagine those. Ideally, take those down and start over, where we can come back with a circulation system with stairs and elevators that make more sense, that don't just meet the letter of the law and the letter of accessibility, but actually function well for everyone in the building and create a nice circulation path through. The end goal here is to really leverage the investments in the recovery dollars that we're spending. So this slide demonstrates some areas that we do plan on reutilizing. We feel they're in good structural state. We feel like they're good reusable spaces that we could reimagine within the shells. So that would be the gymnasium, both the lower level locker rooms and weight rooms, and the gymnasium itself. What I call the west wing, that more rectangular block of classrooms that are in the center west side of the building. The band and choir rooms seem to be in pretty good shape. With the exception of the smaller choir room with the wood risers in it. That one is a little bit questionable structurally, and it is an older addition that has some energy with the windows and the wall conditions, a little bit questionable if it would still meet energy codes. We have the science classrooms that do seem to be in very good shape still after the storm, that really don't need a whole lot of rehab to get them back up and functioning. So we're looking at maximizing those. This area in yellow is the library and the classrooms underneath the library. There is a bit of a structural movement in the southwest corner of the library where it appears that it's settled a little bit. Now, if that was a result of the storm or if that was just natural settlement over time, we don't know. But it's something that might be a way we can help fix some of these circulation patterns if we were to readdress that library space. Keep as much of the structure as we possibly can, but find a logical structural line where we could maybe remove that structural issue or remedy that structural issue, if you will, and expand on that space. And then the last point here is the cafeteria. It is a bit unusual to have a single kitchen serve an entire campus as you all have now. And so it's a bit more of a grander question of, does it make sense for that single kitchen to be in place, and can that space be utilized for something else that could help contribute to the renovation of the high school, and maybe support just the middle school and the high school in a different way, and those connectors. So more of question marks on that one than it is a solution. But kind of giving you a behind the scenes look at our story and how we've arrived at the solutions that we're at. And then with this slide, we get to the critical adjacencies of those larger spaces. Yes?
So in that cafeteria, so you would renovate the kitchen to where it only served the high school?
We don't really know if it would make sense for it to serve both the middle school and the high school given its current location, likely. It may make more sense to potentially, some options we're looking at, I guess to say it clearly, is what if the cafeteria for the high school is not in that location? What if it happens somewhere else in the building? How could that cafeteria space be utilized in a different way? And then it's more of an overarching question from a master planning perspective for the entire campus, given primary and elementary schools being served out of that same kitchen. Is that a good long-term solution? Because you only have one kitchen, and if that kitchen goes offline for whatever reason, then you have to cater in food, and you have to find some stopgap measures before that can be remedied. So it's a little bit less about the high school and more about a master planning for the entire campus. So thinking about the four major components of the building, basically the larger spaces, and how those spaces will work around those stakes in the ground, the areas that we identified in pink that were really usable spaces, the classrooms, the science rooms, the gymnasium. How would these other spaces revolve around those, and how could those work out? So the critical adjacencies of everything, and how they would communicate with each other and be zoned in a public and private access, be zoned to have common activities near other common activities, be zoned in a way that teaching structures would match, the spaces would match the teaching structures. So the common space, right now, there really isn't a common space, it's the cafeteria essentially, and right now it's best served as a lunchroom. It's really not served as much of another use. So other uses it could be a gathering space, it could have some small performances in there, it could be a collaboration area, it could be another teaching area outside of the classroom. So can we develop a commons area within the building that could be more than just a lunchroom? Performing arts, we understand that you'll have a wonderful performing arts curriculum here, and how can this building support that, both for performances, but also for formal gatherings, for student gatherings, for performances, both with the school and potentially with the community, rehearsal spaces, and Tornado got us into this, so can Tornado kind of help us out with this too, or this Performing Arts Center could potentially be a FEMA shelter for the community. It's our understanding that you have your bases covered for the student population with the existing shelters that are in place at the middle school and I believe the primary, if that's correct. So if we were to do another FEMA shelter, it would be over and above what would be needed for your current student body. But it could be a community element, because right now the ones you have are not sized with the community. The community would not be able to have access to it and legally meet the occupied numbers. So it could be something that could help you out with the bond issue. We're saying that a community will be willing to build this for you. Vice versa, the gym and a gym expansion. We can design a gym to meet FEMA standards. It's a pretty common thing, especially in elementary schools. So that could also be a FEMA shelter for the community. And then the obvious physical education and athletic competition would happen in those. And potentially other large gatherings if we design the risers in the appropriate way. And then the library, your library is a pretty good size actually. It really isn't set up for a modern media center. It's really set up, seems like it was set up for books and a little bit different way of learning and a different way of teaching. And so how can we get a few of those more informal activities and those more digital activities involved with the library, and create study areas and small group settings and collaboration areas inside of that space too. Now that library could bleed out. It may not have to be behind closed doors. We can think about that in a little bit different concepts. So all those things considered, we've taken option B and added a little bit of a spin to it, a B.1. Starting with the entrances, we have primary entrance still on the north facade, where it is now adjacent to the gym. We have potential for a west entrance off of that west parking lot. That could be, depending on how things evolve, it could be a new front door, or it could just be a secondary entrance into certain semi-private, semi-public spaces. And then there's also opportunities for entrance to the south, where it could work out well if we put the Performing Arts Center adjacent to the existing music and band rooms, we could have a bit of a performing arts kind of entryway and have a different experience from that direction. We're looking at expanding the gym to the east where the stage is now, taking a bit of that real estate to expand off of the really wonderful gym you have now. Keeping science where it is, and on each end of the science wing, that central wing, rethinking those circulation hubs to have them function a little bit better, have them be more bright and airy, maybe bring in a little bit of community spaces, a little bit of a common space into those zones. And then having a library renovation and or addition up to the north and west, adjacent to basically a restructuring of the 200-300 wing in a similar footprint in either a north-south orientation or even going back with the east-west orientation that it has now.
And that would be what?
The classrooms, so the 200-300 classrooms, basically rebuilding those in at this point, a 2-story footprint. We could explore a 3-story footprint there too, if we needed to. Thinking about long-term, looking at how the athletics components revolve around the high school renovation, potentially moving the competition, the football stadium and the bleachers and concessions and restrooms to the track field, and developing I guess an updated, I guess the right way to say it, an updated experience down there. And then a future field house that could go adjacent to the existing maintenance facility. It could go in another location, but kind of keeping it in that athletic zone down there to where all similar kind of activities are happening, so coaches aren't running all over the place. And at this point, having the maintenance down on that side makes a lot of sense. It's kind of away from things that you can make a mess and it's not really visible, so having it in that zone, whether it's in the old alternative school or if it's in the storage facility across the street, however it would work out, would be fine. Did I hit all the bullet points? I think I did.
I think this diagram, the performing arts, the gym, some of those elements, how the relationship is to the side where we do have the outdoor activity spaces. I think that's valuable to have that connectivity between that building function and that outdoor field or football field or track or whatever it is that's helping to support the health and wellness. So those work really well. The PAC in this location, as Justin said, your current band and choir rooms, those are nice spaces in there. So could we kind of, again, coalesce a few elements to support those and create more of that fine arts out there? And again, those sorts of things, whether it's band and so forth, that direct connection to that outside on this east side would be great. And a lot of these bigger elements, and then the library's kind of moving a little more front and center. A lot of these kind of core areas, the commons, library, TAC, gym, these are all kind of public-facing spaces. They're spaces where you invite the public into a lot. But you don't want that public to go any further than where they need to go. So trying to position these things so we have a clear line between the academic structure and the spaces and the forward community-facing ones is part of the challenge as well. We can move these elements in lots of different locations. The cost to build that pack there is probably no different than if we build it on the upper left. But we think we got a pretty good orientation of these relative to the assets you already have in your high school we can continue to build on, because we're not totally tearing that building down. So we're trying to put them in areas where we can leverage that. So maybe that box actually could get a little smaller than what we're showing, because we've got assets that are currently there that we can enhance. And then just getting those, like I said, that indoor-outdoor connections. Parking's obviously a big player in these things as well. We want to put them in areas where we have a variety of parking. There's parking to the north, there's parking out there again to the east side. So, and the last thing I'll comment on is the field house location. Trying to get that positioned so it kind of frames the football stadium, that experience, but also can serve multiple fields is nice. And I'll say there's a lot of doodling we still got to do with these things to get them really in the right spot. But we're trying to just identify the big pieces. in some of these elements that we're talking about, maybe that field house, so this stadium for development, you know, they're somewhat independent of the rest of these projects. I mean, there's not a lot of elements that we're saying, well, if we don't do it here, we're gonna have to shove that into the program of what we're trying to fit inside the high school or attached to the high school. So that is one of those things where we have to start to identify things based on finance and funding. You know, some of those outer elements could be some of those type of things that put into that bucket.
So you didn't include the stadium or field house or any of that in your initial estimate?
Right, those
Do you
are not-
know how much those could add to the total if we?
I mean, I think we kind of just brainstorm, I mean, just put numbers out for those, say, for that stadium complex there, you could easily spend about $5 million on that, lighting, turf, concessions, bleachers, some bathrooms under that.
That's not in your earlier $50 million estimate.
Right, no.
Neither is the pack, right? Flooring Arts
The
Center.
pack
Yeah,
now
it's in
is
the
in
pack.
some of the numbers,
It
yes.
is in that?
Yeah.
The field house is not in there, that field house, I mean, you could be looking at anywhere between $7 and $9 million, I mean, depends on how, you want one level, 2 levels, how many locker rooms you want in there, you want community rooms in there. But those numbers aren't anything.
You ruled out the option C, what was the money and time, or what was?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of finances. I mean, that was to pretty much taking the high school almost down completely and rebuilding that, trying to separate the middle school living from the high school. And there was just a lot of cost there. And I think people, they still have a lot of pride in what there is here to work with. The challenge is to get rid of the bad stuff, get rid of the stuff that's damaged, and try to keep the good parts.
With the, and this is hypothetical down the road, but in that plan, expansion of the gym, can that be done to where the two can be opened up together, to where we could host our graduation there instead of going to the Park Center?
Well, what we're proposing would be to take the stage off of that end of that, and yes, we would want to try to have as much openness there as possible between those two things.
One court runs this way and the other one's.
Yeah, the whole court situation, I mean, we're still playing around with that. I'd love to turn the court. But, you know, we just need to kind of determine whether we think we want to invest in some supplements of that gym, and then we'll take a holistic look at the whole thing, so. But yeah, we would want to try to get it as open as possible.
Again,
Again, so you
obviously,
can-
you've got a game going on in the
Yeah.
gym, and you got a practice or something in that gym, that you have to be isolated
Yeah,
and separated. But currently, we go down to the Park Center for our graduation, because it's only big enough to hold us.
yeah.
If we're gonna spend all this money, I'd like to do it right here on campus.
Then we can certainly explore lots of options. You know, the PAC is probably not gonna be large enough. Right now, I think we're predicting that to be around 750 seats. But, you know, the size of that can fluctuate, but what we have plugged in is about 750 seats.
It did include moving the art classrooms and special ed classrooms in the annex into the main high school.
Yeah, we
Is that
were,
correct?
yes, we were planning on getting those things
Because that helps make room for the.
pulled together.
No, actually, the storage, IT can expand over into those more office spaces. I'm up there by the.
Yeah,
one.
Our discussion here, kind of Steve's comment about we got a lot of doodling still to do. I should mention that this is just one scenario. We still have a lot of exploration to do. We may come back in future meetings with a different layout because we think it works better. This is really just an exercise to visualize what the costs might be and how we might get to a number that could be funded. So this is really our litmus test to make sure that what we were talking about from a spreadsheet perspective worked in the real world. So we will likely come back with iterations of this, and those critical adjacencies I was talking about, we have at least 6 other options that we've explored that may meld together to a better solution at a given time, so.
Well, we could also Because just based on the numbers you gave me, I mean, I know you guys, your number on the PAC was similar to what you've given us in the past. I mean, you could actually do the field house and the field for the same price. I mean, in other words, you could flip flop and do the field stuff first and do the PAC later. And that, maybe that's another survey question to see what we think everybody wants.
Exactly, it's a matter of identifying priorities for the community, yeah.
I'm gonna ask a question, see where Colin and everybody else gets in on this, but we're seeing these numbers thrown around and we haven't even designed the building. How accurate do you think these numbers really are, and can we stay within these budgets? Are these high, are these low, are these right in the middle? What's everybody think? Colin nods, he's, we can do it for this.
You can build it for those numbers,
Okay,
and they're not, I don't think they're low.
okay.
Yeah, that shows you the second year, that was
You had some kind of, you open it and wouldn't.
Yeah, like I said to me, if we're gonna spend that kind of money, I would wanna be able to open that space up for a large gathering.
You might have everybody sit in chairs,
Well,
but, you know what I'm saying? If you've got them lined out like that,
He said a lot of chairs up in the park center too.
We definitely need two gyms, I mean, there's just no doubt about that.
I agree.
In that graphic, is renovation just kind of mixed in all those categories?
Yeah.
Like those science areas?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's just mixed into arts
Yes,
Yeah.
we,
and connectors?
yeah. We've developed a kind of a full like spreadsheet where we try to tag renovation, new, demo, for the various areas, and then that's how we proportion these back out. But yes, this is intended to give you the full project, renovation, demo, new. And we know some areas are gonna be a little lighter on renovation than others. So we have not just thrown $1, we have not just said all renovation is $250 a square foot. We've not done that. We know some areas are gonna be lighter touch than that, so some areas are like $150 a square foot. So we do have data behind these things, so we just felt like we could kind of keep it, more digestible, because there's a lot here for you all to take in and try to make decisions on, and you know, you can leave a lot of the details and get in the weeds to us, because we're gonna eventually get down into those, but I know, I understand for you to try to make decisions, it's better to kind of grasp the whole thing, and there's a lot here to grasp, so, but yes, we have, dug down in that, just like Colin said, he thinks he could build that, we wouldn't have put the numbers out on the sheet if we didn't think that they were reasonable numbers, so.
Any other questions before we move on to next
Yeah,
steps?
let's go ahead and we'll get through this. Yeah, so next steps, we do have a lot of meetings we want to try to get worked in here over the next couple of months. So first off, you know, confirmation on some funding approaches to this. Are we okay going at this 55 million, 60 million, 50 million, whatever the case is? Mike can probably step in and talk a little bit about that, but, you know, we've given you the scenario best we know. Let's just say insurance is what we said it was. I would hope maybe that number could be a little higher, but, you know, again, I'm not gonna wish for something and it fails the first time it doesn't come through, so I'd rather err on the lower side of things, for you, so some decision on the funding, make sure this is the path we wanna go, because we need to be moving, meeting with, well, we're gonna prioritize the spaces, we know that, so we can go into these listening sessions and meeting, working sessions with leadership, with principals, other stakeholders. Phasing, you're always gonna keep an eye out for where we can maybe have some phasing for this stuff. That can kind of come together after we get past schematic design. You know, we can then start thinking about identifying phases. So we have to get towards bond language. So assuming there's gonna be a bond, you know, that bond language has gotta be turned in, I think January 24th or something. So you have to have 2 readings, I understand, so that puts you back in December. So we gotta work through this and get really comfortable with what we're doing. And then we gotta get enough detail in it, so, if you are confident with it, we're confident with it, we can give you renderings of it, pictures of it, because we know after that, we gotta get it out and start, making sure the public knows exactly what it is, the plan is, so. So that's kind of the next steps on that, steering committee and stakeholders meetings, we're trying to get those things, figured out, we've got several of them booked up on some calendars, October 15th, October 22nd, November 5th, November 12th is your board meeting, so we're trying to work some of those into the board meetings, December 10th, so we've got a whole series of these, whether they're with a larger group, which is a steering committee, which is gonna be at a little higher level on the process as far as putting the message out there, providing us with feedback, making sure that we're hitting the big goals of this project. And then there's gonna be a building, kind of a design committee. So that's gonna be a little more down in the weeds. That's where we're talking with the principals and assistant principals. We're also talking with the leadership. We're talking with school, teachers, instructors. So there's a whole series of those meetings. So like the leadership, teacher, staff, community's gotta be a part of this discussion as well. So I think right now we were looking at something in the community. It's like
around Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Second half of November, because we wanna be far enough with that, so we got a good succinct plan, but we can still get feedback, so that then that can help, solidify the bond language and the actual scope of the work that you're gonna be asking them for. So we wanted to make sure we can get that in sort of eyeball on that time frame, or another community then. But then continue to work with insurance, continue to work with FEMA. A lot of the FEMA documents, I think, now have been uploaded to them, so somewhat that's in there for a little bit. Continue for us to develop these things, and then provide you all with updates, so we'll be seeing quite a bit of this.
So, we'll take a question here, let's say we go ahead and we say, yeah, this is the plan we wanna go, and we continue to develop it, and you're working on it, we build this bond language, and we're gearing up for this, and in April, that bond fails. We're left with the $15 million that we have from the insurance. How do we then retrofit and proceed to where our kids are still in school? Out of the temporary structures.
Yeah, right. Right. Then it's gonna be, but yeah, I don't know. That's a big question.
But I don't want a plan to fail, but I want to have a
It's
plan.
it's a real.
But I want to have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to, we're gonna have to put that in the loop here and work that plan before I can kind of give you a direction or an answer on how we do that. But that certainly is something, right, that needs to be on our radar if it doesn't pass. What do we do? So we know we gotta we know the urgency to continue to keep moving this process, and I know that doesn't make it any easier on because of the decisions, but.
Is it reasonable to have you guys, and you may come to them, to be doing that alternative? In other words, what can we put back in place, and how much is that gonna cost us, so we know if the insurance plus X, excuse me, how we can, so we're gonna have to figure out how to fund that delta, because I'm guessing 15 we're gonna replace, but like I said, hopefully 15 is not right, but is it feasible to have you guys be doing some of that in parallel with this, just so if it doesn't pass, we can shift gears relatively quick and not start all over?
Do you remember?
Yeah, just to remind you, as a contingency plan, again, not knowing how this fits into the grand scheme of, what future of the building holds, but you can do $17 million on a no tax increase with the COP.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, that would be a fallback.
Because you're not gonna get any FEMA money until your project is completed, whatever that project is. So we'll have to finance that on the front end, and you can do up to 17 million.
Right. But
a worst-case scenario is no FEMA and low insurance and no tax increase. You know what I'm saying? So my question is what does that look like from a redesign or a retrofit? And can the insurance plus the 17 cover that? Or what can we get for that 32?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Yeah, we would, yeah, we're gonna wanna try to still keep our eye on the ultimate solution, and then we're gonna take a step back and say, well, what could we start to kind of, if the worst case scenario, let's postpone doing that piece right there, let's postpone doing that piece there. So we'll have to do a deep dive into that, but we can certainly work a plan that way.
Yeah, we would look at components that could be phased. So for instance, the Performing Arts Center or the gymnasium expansion. And kind of, similar to what this study did, build on what needs to be done now, and then what could be drawn as an alternate and designed now, but maybe funded and built in the future.
Well, because part of that's going to be getting out of that temporary stuff, you know what I mean? So
Right.
getting everybody back in there, saving that money, and then, like I said, it'd be like we did with the other buildings. You'll have to do this wing this summer, this wing,
Right.
you can close off, and you can do it during,
Sure. Yeah, so I guess the answer we can give you today is that looks like a high school without an auxiliary gym and without a performing arts center would get you close to that 32 million of known funding. And we've got to figure out what the rest of that gap would be, how that gets funded, or what else would be pulled out of the program to make up the difference. We should have put board here, the administration as well. That's the next step to move forward on.
Right. After the recommendation. So
Yes.
PCC, yeah.
Right.
Yep, so we really don't have anything more to present. Mike, I don't know if you've got anything, but you're here to questions on any kind of financing.
Yeah. Steve, did you mention you had that slide tucked away back in there somewhere? Good. So really nothing's changed as far as the potential plan of finance. This slide really summarizes all of your available options, and if you're kind of keeping score based on the information that was just presented, a $55 million total project, assuming, again, the assumption is that you get 15 million or somewhere around there in insurance, and then you're financing 40 million, you would be in the second column from the right. So if this were a general obligation bond issue, it would be a 56-cent tax levy increase. And if it were a COP, it would be a 26-cent tax increase. Because again, you have some outstanding COP debt. We're able to shape this new debt issuance, the new COPs, around your existing debt to minimize the tax burden. Right now, you have about 65 cents of your levy that is servicing your principal and interest payments of your outstanding COPs. So as this current debt falls off, we can reallocate a portion of that 65 cents to go to paying on the new debt. Couple things I wanted to mention that I didn't last month because some of this information we didn't have yet. I talked a little bit about doing some short-term financing to account for the fact that you won't get FEMA funding right away. We really aren't going to have the information necessary to really know what that looks like. So rather than, we're kind of, our best option is to take FEMA out of the equation, but plan for some injection of funds later at a later time, not knowing how much and when it's going to come. But if we can issue this debt, so using let's just focus on the bottom scenario, $40 million new money COP for a 26-cent tax levy increase. We would put a 5-year call feature on those bonds or on those certificates, so that in 5 years you can redeem, you can do a cash redemption of those bonds. So if you get FEMA, let's just say FEMA sends you $10 million. you have the option at the end of 5 years to cash redeem those bonds and lower your overall burden in terms of principal and interest payments. That would give you the ability to lower the tax
So
levy.
it's early payoff.
It's an early payoff, yes. Or you could use that cash payment from FEMA to supplement the project to take care of additional projects. So you wouldn't have to finance that portion of the project if you were doing additional projects beyond the scope that we just reviewed.
Let me ask you this. We were talking about short-term fundings that we have cash flow until we know if FEMA's coming. If we know FEMA's coming, could the insurance money not be that cash flow reserve? I mean, we're gonna get a bulk check from insurance that would just sit there. Could that 15 or whatever $1 million it is not function as our cash flow,
Yeah.
our cash flow?
Yeah, it would certainly help. The only thing is we don't know what's coming from FEMA or when it's coming.
Right.
So, the way we kind of just shifted gear, once we figured out that wasn't information we're gonna have before you all have to take action on an election resolution, we shifted gears and said, okay, we're gonna get some insurance money, we need to finance the rest, and we need to put that short call feature in there to give you maximum flexibility to allow you to either get rid of some of that debt early or supplement the project with some cash from FEMA. If that makes sense.
The short call feature will raise the interest rate though, correct?
The short call feature would increase your true interest cost because you would likely not generate as much premium. Or in other words, investors aren't going to pay more than par, or they will pay more than par, but not as much as they would if you had a longer call feature, because when you have a short call feature, you're telling investors, okay, you may only have this investment for 5 years. And these are typically, a lot of these are institutional investors, but retail investors especially are looking for a longer term return on their investment. But I can tell you that I see 5-year calls all the time.
So then my next question is, let's say we proceed with this and we say we're gonna try to get $40 million. What is the benefit of doing a bond issue and asking the additional 30 cents out of my taxpayer over the certificate? That's a lot of money, that's double.
Yes, I can tell you, I can give you my thoughts and I can tell you what the differences are. We talked a little bit about that last month, but my explanation of the differences are kind of you considering the differences in a vacuum. You have many other considerations in this community of which you know much more about than I do. At some point you have to ask yourself, okay, what's the tolerance for a tax levy increase, and where does that tolerance start to fall off? And that's a question that you all are much better affixed to answer. But to answer the question, general obligation bonds, on the same day in the market, if I'm gonna go tomorrow and sell $40 million of general obligation bonds versus $40 million of COP bonds, the general obligation bonds will have the lower true interest cost, because that is, general obligation bonds are unlimited tax bonds. And so you have the authority as a board to levy whatever you need to make your principal, not only you have the authority, you're required to levy what you need to make those principal and interest repayments. COP debt is what's called annual appropriation debt. And that means you have the annual ability to appropriate to repay principal and interest payments or not to. Now, obviously, there's consequences to not paying your debt, just like there are in our personal lives. Your credit rating would suffer as a result of that. But because of that additional risk, investors will require you to pay a little higher interest rate and a little higher return for that. So that's the difference between those two mechanisms. We've talked a little bit about the COP debt is paid out of Fund 4, which commingles with your operating funds. And so, our original conversation about your outstanding COP debt is, gee, it would be nice to get to redeem those with general obligation bonds and stop that commingling and have all your debt isolated in Fund 3. Again, those are worldly considerations that have kind of changed since, the tornado blew in, and we're talking about a completely different number and a completely different project than before the tornado. So, to answer your question, if I'm looking at your options and I'm on your side of the table, which I have been before, as you guys know, I'm looking at trying to get this thing across the finish line and minimizing the tax burden on your constituents, and that clearly is the COP option. Maybe it's a situation where we look at the COP option and then we come back at a later date and look at our options about potentially redeeming those bonds and trying to move some of that debt over to a debt service fund in the future.
Mr. Mike,
Yes, sir.
for those in the audience or watching, was Prop Kids in 2017 a COP?
It was, yes. And
And it has a sunset of when?
30
or
37.
37, I think that's right. And so, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because this would be an extension of that levy.
So what year, am I reading this right, 2045? On the example you used was 25 cents there, 26 cents?
Yeah, 26 cents. And
Am I reading that correctly, that
It's-
that would sunset in 45?
I think that's right, yeah.
That 26 of it?
That's right.
Does it also continue the Prop Kids
Yes,
amount?
yes.
Which is 35.
It would continue the Prop Kids,
Both of them?
yes,
Until
and
45?
add to until the maturity date on the COPs. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing I haven't shown you yet, I wanted to mention tonight, these are 20-year notes. You can only do 20-year notes in general obligation bonds, but you can do a 25-year note on COPs. You do pay more in interest cost, but it would reduce somewhat your tax liability.
Off of the 26 cents.
Yes, and you guys aren't making any decisions tonight. I could run that scenario and have it for you next month to look at so that you can see what the difference
That's
would be.
taking it to 2050?
Yes, I think that's right.
51.
So let me check those dates real quick, just to make sure.
So,
Yeah, the final maturity is 2045 on a 20-year, so it would be 2050 on a 25-year.
So current is 35.
35 cents, yes.
Right. So the 26 would be over and above the 35.
That's
Through
right.
37, through 2037.
No,
The
it would
35 would extend to 45.
would extend to 35 and add to
Okay.
the 26. And another thing to keep in mind is, again, this is more political than anything, but we just lowered your levy this last year because of the Hancock, roughly 12 cents, if I remember correctly. So
so my next question is if we're adding the 35 and the 25, then the bond issue is better. Does the bond issue, the 55-cent bond issue, does that eliminate the Prop Kids 35 cents?
So if we did a 56-cent tax levy increase for a $40 million general obligation bond, your tax levy, your COP levy, your Prop Kids levy, that would sunset in 2035 or whatever the sunset date is. So your date, 37, excuse me. So your total levy would lower in 2037.
But you would have the 56 plus the 35 until 2037.
That's right. And another thing, because I actually looked at that, like today I looked at what would it look like to issue general obligation bonds and only pay interest until your sunset date, at which time we would increase your debt service levy at the same time your Fund 4 levy would sunset. So basically minimizing the tax levy increase up front and then stepping it up when your COP, when your Prop Kids levy sunsets. But I talked with bond counsel about that and they did not like that idea, because basically you're asking voters to approve a tax levy that would step up in 12, 13 years in the future. So they didn't love that idea. you know, I mean, kind of, again, zeroing in on that $40 million COP scenario, if you look at where your levy was highest, and it's 26 cents at the most, unless we consider a 25-year term, which would lower that, but let's just call it 26 cents. Your levy just lowered by 12 cents, so I mean, the net tax levy increase that generates $40 million in COPs for this project is, you know, for example, I just did a $40 million financing Marshall in '23, and that was a 99-cent tax levy increase, of which 83 cents was going to pay the principal and interest payments. So you're in, not that anybody ever wants to talk about raising taxes, I've done it on your side of the table, and it wasn't my favorite year, but I mean, you really are in a pretty good position where you're minimizing the tax increase if you go that route.
Mike, maybe a question you can't answer, but is there any way, besides giving the taxpayer a handshake, to tell them if we got this FEMA money, we would eliminate that additional levy that we asked for, or a part of it?
Yeah, actually, and this is getting into bond counsel.
Sure, I figured so.
But that's something I'll check on before next meeting. But I believe you can incorporate in the language your intentions to lower the levy in the future once FEMA appropriations are known.
Well, can you find out if that's at all binding, or is that just a handshake or a promise or a?
Yeah, I can find that out.
It would, I would assume the language would say contingent upon receipt or something like that. If you don't get it, then it.
That's right. It would be a good faith measure. The problem is, it'd be perfect if we knew exactly what you're gonna get from FEMA, because then I could do the calculations and tell you exactly how much your levy would need to be after we got that money, and then we could literally promise that to the voters. But without that information, it's difficult to be so precise.
But you think it is a possibility to give some sort of commitment in that language?
I believe so, yes. But again, that's something I want to run by bond counsel.
Is that something you'll know by November?
Yeah, I can, that's something I can take pretty quickly. Yep.
Hey, could you give us a summary of what that would look like?
Yeah.
That language?
Yeah, in fact, I mean, I can have bond counsel put together a draft election resolution. And I could have that for you at the next meeting. It may not be anywhere close to where it ends up, but if it's something that you want sooner than later, I mean, they can have it for me next week.
Any other questions or comments from Mike? Let's, Colin, okay, make a presentation for this one.
I don't know that you all are prepared to, you were just here in case we needed you all, is that correct? Or did you have something you want to present, Colin or Andy?
But I'm here if you have questions.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I didn't leave you out if you
I'm
want,
just
itching
here
to
for
talk.
questions if you need one.
We appreciate that.
So we get a copy of what you showed us this evening.
How about a copy of the one sheet that had the different?
Right, the kind of the menu you want to have the pricing, yeah,
The price on the
site number
different.
cost.
Right now, we don't, maybe this is for Mike, maybe it's for the group. I mean, how would we, not knowing what's coming from FEMA, how would we fund the early childhood renovation? I mean, our hope is that FEMA will pay for it, but we don't even know if they're gonna pay for part of the high school yet. So I mean,
Mr. Mike, did you say we had some COP that we could issue?
we could increase that, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, you could issue
To cover 697,000.
yep. I mean, that would take me, if you said go tonight, it would take me about 3 months to get your money deposited. But before we do anything like that, I'd like to talk a little bit about fund balances and what your possibilities are to not finance it. I'm not trying.
Well, that was my question, is do we have the money that we could use theoretically, or do we have to fund it? I mean,
I think so. I want to talk with Dr. Jones.
I'd like to look a lot closer.
Yes,
Yes, Right.
We have been carrying a fund balance, we've been, and for things like this, that's why you do that. That's why you're careful year after year after year. That's why you try not to deficit spend so that fund balance doesn't go down too far. But I'd really like to look very closely at that, but it's possible we could.
so we can't really do anything with that yet today.
I don't, personally, I don't wanna vote on developing this $700,000 development.
Don't know how we're
And we have any idea how we're gonna pay for it.
Right.
I'd rather figure out how we're gonna pay
Agreed.
for it before we develop it.
We could probably get that.
I understand that's gonna postpone the project.
Is there any way you could front load with another insurance payment to get you through that? Get another insurance disbursement, use that money?
That's a John question, maybe.
Well, I mean, and
I
this
don't
is a
know.
very generalized statement, but if there's 14 million that should be sitting in our bank instead of theirs right
Yeah,
now, and that 14 million could be making money for us,
I
not
feel,
them.
I feel pretty confident you could get that and use it however you need to.
I mean, it's temporary facilities, and it could come up 2 weeks from now, and has nothing to do with trying to go over here and put these in, and they're gonna say, well, you're gonna have to follow the resolution on temporary facilities, because they're out. So that's our argument, is it's really a replacement of the temporary facilities that are in with another temporary facility, and in this case, just happens to come with in benefit to you all.
Again, and Mike and I can run a few fund balance scenarios, and then we can discuss with John as well that additional, and I can just communicate to you all through email on that for the next few days. And if the board feels inclined, we could call a special session.
Mr. Stephen, you mentioned the community meeting. Can you tell me that somewhere around Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
If you could have all your wishes, what would you want to be presenting, what we have to spend and what that could buy, or what kind of input are you asking for close to nothing, or close to Thanksgiving?
Well, we're gonna need input to really kind of move forward. You know, are we designing a $32 million high school solution, or are we designing the $56 million? And we can certainly look at making some of these, the PAC, the gym, those things, as separate or phased or whatever, but kind of just need to know that that's the direction we're going. We need to keep moving forward. We can't show up at a community forum with these bubble diagrams.
You need to know what this board has a appetite to spend.
Are we?
Or ask for.
Correct.
You mentioned some other steering committee meetings that you had planned already.
We're trying to get those things locked in for the next week or so, yes.
So I'm unaware of those
That
dates.
was, we just talked
Yeah,
about
no,
it,
we're-
and that was the discussion.
Yeah, we don't have
That
those,
was in the packet.
we don't have those committed yet, but
Yeah.
we've got a schedule that we want to try to follow
Okay.
so we can get things moving forward considerably.
Yeah, and I guess to answer your question directly, the next community input meeting, we would like to be showing an example of what we would be asking for with the bond language. So what would that ask be providing in a building form, not just a
Like a
paragraph?
3D rendering kind of thing?
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so what you guys might or might not know, but I think that was critical in our 17 getting it approved,
Yeah.
is we were able to show how bad the existing buildings were, which is kind of obvious now. But then we showed them what they could get. I mean, it didn't match the final renderings, but I mean, it gave them something that people could wrap their head around. You know what I mean? If you got something that they're like, oh, look, oh. It's easier than if you, like you said, there's no way you could go to anybody with that and
Right.
get them to buy into that. I mean, it's fine for here and now, but I think people need to understand and see. I mean, walkthroughs, I mean, technology's changed in the 8 years since we did that too, so I mean, but yeah, I think that's what you need, is to be able to show people what they're gonna get.
Mr. President, I feel like when we, as a board, discuss this funding amount and how we're gonna do that, that's gonna be a long meeting.
I agree.
Should we do a meeting dedicated to talking about that before our November meeting? Do we need to wait on Mr. Donnelly? He has some negotiations that are happening.
I don't know.
And then Mr. Mike's gonna get us some information, but that sounds like it's pretty quick.
I can get that, I can be ready for a special meeting.
Yes. Do I have a date in mind? I do not. Do you all have a date in mind? I mean, staying with Wednesdays, do we want to meet on the 22nd? And have a special meeting specifically trying to discuss the future plans as a board?
Well, I think it's gonna be an in-depth conversation talking about what the appetite is for that dollar
Yeah, we
amount.
have to
what
figure
that
out how deep we want to go in this project and the ask to the taxpayer and
Yeah.
funding and all of those issues.
Feels like it needs to have something dedicated to that, just my
I would love to have, I would love to be able to ask for a vote about this early childhood development piece tonight, but I feel like I need to find out the funding first. I gotta figure out how we're gonna pay for it.
Could that be incorporated into that?
Absolutely. I'd like to have all that figured out by then, hopefully. I know that's only 2 weeks.
Is tentatively that what we're going to do?
I mean, is the 22nd a reasonable, that's 2 weeks, that gives Mike, John, everybody 2 weeks to do some research. I know that puts Colin a little further behind that, doesn't it, but
Yeah, it's gonna put us further behind. I'm trying to get project design moving forward so that we can have a good amount of information to put in front of the community meeting. That community meeting will likely shift in a little bit, probably
I
be
mean, do we need to
after
be next
Thanksgiving.
week? Is that too early? And what's everybody's availability? I'm tolerant, because everybody said you need is next week doable for Mike and everybody to consider next Wednesday another meeting?
We're talking next Wednesday evening,
I would rather do the 22nd, but we don't have to. I mean, it depends on how quick we need it.
I mean, I think even the 22nd, we're still gonna have a lot of unanswered,
Well,
unanswered questions, but at least we can maybe move some things forward, you know what I mean?
If
Could
you wait.
you just, Dr. Jones, could you figure out all the financial aspect on the early childhood temporary, and maybe we can squeeze in a special meeting just for that, where we're just discussing that aspect? To get that ball rolling, and then Dominic, yes?
I'm fine, yeah.
The
I just-
22nd is the mayor conference. I don't know if that's a conflict for you. We will be at the mayor conference.
I don't want to speak and volunteer the entire board for an extra 7 meetings a month. That's a consideration I'm trying to make, but I don't have a problem doing a special meeting.
I
to
signed
talk-
up for this job.
I don't have a problem doing a special meeting to talk about strictly the central office early childhood development piece, once we study that funding, and then have another meeting to proceed. By the date of that meeting, I would like to spend some more time developing this committee and getting some people invited to this committee to help us steer that if that's the direction we're gonna go.
I'm available for an additional meeting.
Okay. And obviously, those other 4 board members that applied, I think should be asked to be on that committee. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
So, we'll try to figure out the funding for the early childhood and central office project. And we'll have a meeting as early as next week on that. And then meet again on the 22nd to, with the entire agenda to dive into the rebuild plan and the funding and the tax language and all of those types of things. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll formalize our thoughts and conversations we've had about, like I said, steering committee, building committee, timeline. I know timeline might be kind of squishy a little bit, but we'll try to get that kind of jotted down. We'll share that back through Dr. Jones.
And if you don't care and can attach any of your presentation to that email,
Yeah,
she can forward to us so that we can all sit there in our own time and
sounds good.
Stare at it.
Digest it a little bit.
You know, that may be helpful too.
One more thing I want to mention on early childhood funding. I know that we feel like there's a good chance insurance will cover it, but if we use district fund balances to cover it in the interim, we'll also have in the bond resolution that you approve, there'll be a provision that allows you to pay yourself back from bond proceeds if you use any of the district funds. So just as an additional safeguard, yep, that'll be in that resolution as well. That's just standard language.
All right, it sounds like you're pretty confident that we'll get it funded. I'm just cautious enough that I don't want to spend the money until we know where it's coming. Personally.
Second that.
Any other storm recovery update pieces, or shall we move on?
I guess I don't have anything else.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next up is the program evaluations for the early childhood program and parents as teachers. Is there, I'm going too fast on this one?
Not at all.
Is there any questions or concerns? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the artificial intelligence guidelines.
You want the mouse? No.
All right, good evening, everyone. I think you've all had a chance to look at the document. This is just informative. But as you know, artificial intelligence is becoming more prevalent, and we need procedures in our district to address how we use that appropriately. And so I've created a handbook, procedures, guidelines. What might be most applicable to look at is the appendix, which is the red, yellow, and green. Green being acceptable uses, yellow being used with caution, and red, do not use at all. And moving forward with that, we'll start working on a little bit more informative training with our teachers and students. Currently, we do not restrict and artificial intelligence in the district. Just want to make you aware. What is restricted is how we use it. Now, going forward, that may be something that we look at, but currently, there is no blocks on that at this time.
And be here to close the door.
Thank you. So I'll take any questions that you may have. Oh, additionally, we are going to put together a committee of teachers to work on like the nuts and bolts of going forward. Should we do some consideration of how we use it differently? Should we have approved and vetted AI tools that we use, things like that? And what are some barriers and obstacles we see coming up that we need to be looking at? And these teachers would be those who want to participate, who are already using AI, who are interested in it, and want to make sure that we use it in the best possible way.
What would be our best resources?
So, any questions?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I may be overthinking this. I expected somewhere in here to see the word research. Is it okay to use AI to research according to these guidelines? And or is it intentional that you didn't use the word research?
It wasn't intentional. Research, essentially Google is an AI.
It gathers information?
It gathers information. And so some of the AIs that are out there, like a ChatGPT, for example, goes into a little bit more in depth, and it can actually compose and draft things for us, whereas Google doesn't do that. However, could a student go into one of those resources, one of those AI tools, and ask for sources? And yes, they could. And I know that we have teachers that are doing that. Give me links to articles, give me links to resources that we could use in our teaching. That's a good source for that. What we want to stay away from is the use to create things.
Compose.
And claim them.
Is this the language that will be in the handbook, or be presented to parents and?
So there is a link there, family friendly. I can't remember what we called it.
All in AI in our school.
How we use AI in our schools, and it's condensed. But this is something that we will put on our website, that we'll make available, and then this we will send home to parents.
Ms. Darrell, I know I'll get asked this question by someone. Is there any reason why we didn't just say fair and equal access instead of using equity and access and equitable access?
Equity is what is used in DESE's policy and in the U.S. policy. If you look at the resources that I have in the handbook there, that is what they use.
Could fair and equal be used in this place?
We could change that to fair and equal.
Does it change the meaning?
I don't see it changing the meaning, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And I apologize for missing the first part of it, but as I read through it, I noticed there's professional development, so there's training for the teachers, but I didn't see anything as far as training for the students.
That would happen within the classroom.
Okay, I mean, to me, that should be a piece, is
Yes.
at some point, teach the kids how we want them to, or how we believe they should.
It's important, yeah. We're never about banning these tools, but about effective use and safe use. Anything else? Thank you.
Next, I'll schedule a roll call vote to schedule closed session to discuss legal, student, personnel, records, and real estate matters as permitted by revised Missouri statute 610.21, section 1, 2, 3, 6, 13, 14, and 21 at the conclusion of the open session.
Second.
Nancy? Kevin? Lyndon?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Alex? Jamie?
Aye.
Dominic?
Next up is the proposal to revise cumulative grade point average calculations for dual credit and dual enrollment courses.
We'll run some friends with us this evening. Guys, first off, thanks for giving us a couple minutes here. Good news, I've got a handout, and what we're proposing costs $0 from the several hours that we put into kind of looking at this, there actually doesn't seem to be any downsides at all. This is just an opportunity for us to help some of our students potentially in their scholarship and college application process. So just to jump right in, many of you were on the board a number of years ago, and I don't remember exactly when this change occurred. I want to say roughly 8 or 9 years ago. We moved away from the salutatorian and valedictorian to what we currently have with the cum laude honor system. At that same time, we moved away from weighted GPAs. From what I've learned in looking into this, the main reasons for that was the weighted GPAs. One, they seem to be haphazardly aligned to certain courses. You know, we had some honors courses, we had some fine arts courses, we had our student council, which is our leadership class. It just seemed almost kind of hodgepodge the way that certain classes were weighted. Another part was that counselors reported at the time just getting a lot of students who were just kind of fixated on taking the classes to get those weighted GPAs to kind of push them up in the class rankings, which is really not what we want. You know, we want students that are taking classes that are going to prepare them for whatever path they choose after high school, because that's really what we're here for, getting ready for what's later. Things have shifted. At this point, thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Brown kind of reaching out, what we have found at the time that this change made, most colleges and universities were, and scholarship opportunities were looking at unweighted GPAs solely. So even though we had a weighted GPA where a high achieving student may graduate with a 4.26, their actual GPA that the colleges were looking at was the unweighted, which they would then drop them down to maybe a 3.67, you know, which is still good, but would take them out of the running for some of those higher scholarships. What we found out, the Browns reached out, and I hate to talk for you here, but I'm just going to hop in. Reached out and asked if we would consider going back to weighting GPAs specifically for our dual credit and dual enrollment classes, which are college level curriculum, college level assessments. When I reached out to the 3 colleges and universities where we send the vast majority of our students, so our post-graduation, that would be Southeast Missouri State, Mineral Area, and Jeffco, and asked them what they currently looked for, they were unanimous. We will take either weighted or unweighted, whichever puts that student in the best possible position. So then the question arises, why are we not allowing our students, as some other regional schools are, to have the opportunity to go in with a higher cumulative GPA and then qualify for these higher scholarships? So we started calling some high schools around here, St. Vincent's, St. Genevieve, Fredericktown, Farmington, Jackson, Cape Central, and Scott City. Spoke to all of them personally. They've all gone back to weighted GPAs as well. So in a nutshell, that's the homework and the hours that have gone into this so far. So we kind of got a breakdown here of what we're looking at. We would like to move back to allowing for an increased GPA point calculation in the cumulative solely for the dual credit and dual enrollment classes. On the back side of this page, you'll see we currently have 75 students who, and that's a combination of both juniors and seniors, who are enrolled in at least one, and most of them several, dual credit and dual enrollment classes. That's 75 students who will benefit from this boost to the GPA. 75 students who will potentially qualify for higher scholarship monies than they would if we don't make this move. Now, the great thing, in working with Mr. Tucker, who's kind of our Infinite Campus specialist, he's already been in touch with Cape Central High School, who has this exact weighted system that we're proposing, and they have the Infinite Campus Student Information System, and he's already found a way that we can actually put this into effect for this fall 2025 semester. So these 75 kids who are already enrolled can start earning those benefits this year. So really what we're doing now is just looking for you guys to say, hey, this is exciting, and to kind of give your blessing that we can go ahead and implement this change, start communicating that to parents, to students and families, so they can actually start making those applications with that higher GPA that they've earned.
Those 75 students, are they juniors and seniors only?
Correct.
None lower than junior?
Correct.
Okay. What % of them are seniors?
I don't know the exact percent. I know that we actually have a higher number of juniors than we do seniors. Which is
Based on this information in your statement, the scholarship applications don't ask whether it's a weighted GPA or not, they just look at the GPA.
some do, some specify, but a lot do not.
We both continue to stay on the transcript.
We have the option, actually, it was as simple as a click to show one, the other, or both.
What's your proposal?
My proposal at this point it would be to have both available. That's something that we're going to talk about and look at a little bit more closely moving on. The representative I talked to of Mineral Area specifically, I'll be honest, it was a little wishy-washy. She said, well, we could take either one. If both are on there, I'd probably look at non-weighted, but if the weighted's going to help more, we could look at that. We're talking about thousands of dollars in students' pockets and potential student loans, so that was one of those, okay, maybe we just go ahead and go with the weighted only, and then upon request, if they want to see the unweighted, we can provide that as well.
Would it still be visible to parents if you chose that other way?
Correct. It would just be a printout on the official transcript of what they would request from our counseling department. They'll see whichever one click.
It looks like in Infinite Campus right now, it says cumulative and.
It says weighted and non,
Weighted and
and they're
unweighted.
identical.
So, according to your proposal, those would be different if they're in a weighted class.
Now, the other thing, if you get into how this all works, there are a couple of different ways you could do the weights, where basically the weighted courses have a greater effect on the GPA. We looked at that very briefly, but that could actually have adverse effects on a student's GPA. If they end up getting a C, that has a greater impact weighting factor. What we're looking at is what the other area schools have done, where it really cannot hurt them. It's basically just bolstering their grade by adding that into the calculations by that 2/3 of a letter grade.
So that part's standard, not a student.
Correct. All of the ones that have provided us with examples, this is how they're done.
Thanks for coming around. How did it
I was
affect you?
gonna say, would you like to?
Yeah, I would love to know how it affected you.
Yeah, so, we went on a campus visit with, our son, who's a senior, and, he got an A- his first semester of his freshman year in an honors English class. He was like I think isn't it like 90 to 94 is an A-, and 95, he got like a 94. And as a 14-year-old, you're not gonna be like, I can't believe you got an A-, this is terrible. So we were just like, oh, okay, this is high school. Anyway, since then, he's had all A's. And so that A- just keeps sticking out there. So now he has a 3.992. And so we're like 0.008 from a 4.0. And we went to SEMO, and they show, if you have
These are automatic scholarships.
yeah.
You just gotta give your information and then you automatically.
You don't have to apply for them, automatically they're gonna give you $8,000 if you have a 4.0 and a 28 or above on your ACT. He has a 31 and a 3.992, and I was like, I can't believe we're gonna lose out on $8,000, because the next one that he would qualify for is like $4,000 less, just because of a mathematically insignificant 0.00, 8 GPA. So we were saying, is there any, and he's taken all advanced classes, all honors classes,
And this
probably-
would help him, right, if we
Right.
could incorporate this for
And-
the last few classes he has as an honor student to
right.
bring it up so he can get, that's
So-
almost $15,000
And the reason it came
over
up
4 years.
is our one of his friends at St. Vincent, the parent was like, oh, I'm sure that his college classes will be weighted to fix that. He's taken all these advanced courses, of course that's gonna help him, and I was like, I don't see it. And I thought, well, so I reached out to the counselor, and she was like, unfortunately, we don't, and I was like, well. So that's when I realized, like, St. Vincent was doing it, Cape Central, like he said, he called around, and we were just kind of wondering why our students were at a disadvantage, because they're missing out on these funds that these colleges are offering, but our students are still taking the same college classes and not getting the weighted, even though it's a college course.
So we were, then I reached out to Mr. Schaefer, and he was like, let me see what we can do, and call around and see, because I just didn't like it that our students are at a disadvantage to their peers at other surrounding schools. And this money is just out there, automatic. And I want our kids from our district to get that money as well.
When did you go away from it, Mr. Schaefer?
I believe it was 8 or 9 years ago. I know that change happened.
What was the reasoning at that point?
Like I had said at the beginning, I wasn't a part of those conversations, but what I have learned thus far, it was most colleges were only accepting the unweighted GPAs at the time, scholarships specifically, and that's all shifted. The biggest thing that seems, when I was talking with the representatives from CMOS specifically, they said they want to offer the most attractive package to incoming freshmen possible. And in talking with a few other folks, it seems like because college admissions are down across the board, and because student loan debt has become such an ongoing part of all conversations all over the country, they're really just looking to incentivize more and more students, especially high-achieving students, to come to college. So that's why they've all kind of shifted over to accepting the weighted GPAs. Prior, if we're showing students a weighted GPA and they're applying to colleges under the impression that, yep, this is my GPA, I've got a 4.12, I'm gonna qualify for this, and then the school they're applying to says, no, we need unweighted, and it's now, you're actually at a 3.76, all of a sudden the expectations of what they'll earn don't match up to what they're actually going to get for that school. So it was just about clearing out the clutter. Let's show them what the colleges and what the scholarships are asking for, and let's go that route. Now that the colleges have shifted and the regional schools have shifted, I really don't see any reason why we wouldn't follow suit and give our students the best possible opportunity.
And why would you give no downside, if I heard you earlier? Did I hear you say that?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what a downside would possibly be.
Well, I thought you said if you wouldn't let it pull down there.
Oh, that would be if there are a couple of different ways that you can calculate weighted GPA. The way that we're doing it's basically a bonus 2/3 of letter grade, which is how Cape and Jackson and St. Vincent have implemented. Farmington and Fredericktown do the same, but they have kind of a convoluted additional piece that we're not looking at because they're programs that we don't offer. But the other way is a little more complicated, and it could potentially have a negative impact on a student GPA, which is not something we want to do, right? We want to make sure that students are only being rewarded for the increased rigor and challenge of these college courses, and they're rewarded for their efforts, especially if they're able to earn an A in a college level course with those curriculum and assessments, they should get additional bonus towards their GPA.
Dr. Jones, in the schools you've been in, was it mostly weighted?
Yes.
And if we decided to do this, would it impact students immediately, like this semester?
Prior, certain classes were, only certain classes were weighted, not all the classes. The one I remember was band. Well, it was weighted to encourage kids to participate. I think, and I don't remember which ones were weighted.
Chamber choir, I think was weighted, we got chamber choir.
Student council was weighted.
Student council was weighted.
So you're gonna do that?
What you're projecting is only a college level
yeah.
course.
Right.
My boys always had to jump a wise in football then.
And I think another piece of why we went away from the valedictorian and salutatorian is so that we could recognize more kids during graduation, because we were really only recognizing those two, but I think at that time, we said we were gonna be recognizing, was it 10%, I think, was it? I think that's the number that, I remember when we did that, so, I mean, it's kind of.
And I believe this past year, the graduating class of 2025, it was upwards of 20%.
Yeah. Since we're on that topic, had 5 people ask me this over 3 years. Why can't we do both? Should we not honor the number one performing student in the class?
I don't know that that's something I can answer right now. It's not something
Would the
I've thought
board
about for
consider
several
that?
years.
Is there a reason why you couldn't still recognize?
You couldn't do both.
I've literally had 5 people, they may have all had number one people in their class who were disappointed, but it's a pretty big honor.
I think that's another discussion
Okay.
for another evening.
We'll put it down.
Let's put it on the agenda. And let's address the current proposal.
Make a motion to revise the cumulative grade point average calculations for dual credit and dual enrollment courses.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're gonna revise it.
Thanks very
Thanks,
much.
Brian.
Thank you.
And we'll put it on the agenda to talk about the cum laude and about mutual. Next item on the agenda is the seal of biliteracy.
Just made a little one-pager about the seal of biliteracy. It is an option that DESE offers for schools to do. It's basically just a student shows proficiency in 2 languages. We really have some students who would possibly be eligible for this. They have to have an ACT score on reading and English of 18 and above, I believe, and then, or they do advanced or proficient on the EOC. If they do that, then they also take an online assessment, which is the APPLE, it's Assessment of Performance Toward Proficiency in Languages, and then they would do a project-based assessment as well, which could be an essay. They could host a cultural evening. There are several different varieties that they can choose from. It would be a special stamp on their transcripts, and it also benefits the school with the APR score.
So that, let's just say they do that evening thing, it would be in the alternative language, is that the idea, since they hosted it in the alternative language? just to show
Not
the
necessarily, they would just explain something that they learned through pursuing that language. So it could be food related, it could be cultural celebrations. It's kind of up to the district on what we choose as the parameters. We will form a committee and kind of talk about that and gather a rubric for assessment.
Can you give me a similar award that we give out that would be similar to this?
No.
Okay.
No, because I can't think of any. And like, we are just thinking like some of our English-speaking students are really advanced in Spanish. They're doing really, really well. Some of our Spanish-speaking students are doing well in English. Some of our Japanese students would be ideal candidates too. We were gonna go through the EOC scores and just see what kind of number we're looking at that would even be eligible. Sorry, I apologize. I just can't think of anything that's similar.
Like the C-ball out, one might be the CTE certificate come into effect in 2021. If they complete so many hours of assessments, that would be an additional to their high school.
And because we're issuing it, you want to ask us if we want to start giving this award?
Yes, I have your permission to do so.
Gotcha. Make a motion to approve the seal of biliteracy as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll be issuing the seal of biliteracy.
Thank you, thank you.
Next is the local compliance plan. So you're up again.
Anytime they make changes to the state plan for special education, we have to adopt the local compliance plan. There are no changes as far as the way we do things. There are verbiage changes that go along with some of the Senate bills, and I kind of summarized it for you. It is very generic. No impact on what we are currently doing.
favor? Aye. Opposed? We have a new local compliance.
Thank you.
Now we need to approve the bus and emergency routes.
Yes, so in October of each school year, we are required to adopt these. Here are the bus routes presented by Ms. Sarah Orff. You have these in your packet for you to preview. And then we would also need an approval of the emergency routes.
Now, once we approve these routes, are they still somewhat ever changing with our ebb and tide of bus drivers?
Yes.
Mine was back tomorrow.
Yeah, mine did too.
Make a motion to approve the 25-26 bus and emergency bus routes as presented.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Bus route pay.
We have a proposal for you all to consider. There would be a change to the bus driver pay, that pay salary schedule. Because we have had so many drivers who have stepped up and helped us with those double routes. We currently, under the current practice that we have, they get paid for their route, that they go run and do. And then when they come and sub for the other person who's gone, or the route that doesn't have a driver, they get sub pay. So the proposal is for the driver to get their pay and the pay for that route at their rate. If that route takes them, if it falls into that higher mileage route, they would also get mileage. So we've tried to lay out some verbiage here for you and to provide it as an example for you to see if there are pros and cons to it. It is doable for us. It does create definitely more steps when processing payroll, because there will be a lot of manual calculations, because every person is at a different rate and every route has different miles. So there's going to be some exchanging and checking and doing some manual math we have to pull out from the payroll process.
I think as we discussed, I believe it was in a closed session last month, do what we need to do to make sure those routes are covered, so that's why we're proposing that this evening. So there are currently 4 drivers short.
What's the sub pay?
35 per route. So it would be, they do an AM and a PM, I think that's up here, isn't it?
It's 72 per day.
72 a day,
Just 36.
36, sorry.
Does this, Dr. Jones, create a situation where you have competition for this and cause angst?
I think that would be similar to the situation that you would have over trips. You may have multiple drivers that are wanting to make that extra, so they're wanting to drive those evening trips, and so
And the director
the
makes
director
those
makes those
decisions.
decisions.
I'd rather have them fighting over working more than
I can assure you that's not the issue right now, Mr.
so
Simon.
upset that they are working.
And we provided in the example of that one employee, the difference in pay that they could see in a month, if they covered for us for a month, doing 2 routes twice a day.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's still a reasonable amount of money. I mean, to have somebody here and available to take those routes, I don't think that's, around the law.
I see on the cons where it says that some drivers might not want to give up the 2 routes. Is there, I mean, can we express like, this is because we have a problem right now, this isn't, how do we address that comment?
I don't see it as a con myself, because we had 1 return today, we're gonna probably have an additional 1 next week. In other words, when it comes back to the regular route, they will have a regular route.
And
So it
everybody
will not be,
understands that.
it will not be writing for an extra
Sure.
route, which I get it, it's nice to have the extra pay, but yet we don't have that issue right now. We're calling it 4:35, 5:30 in the morning to try and get the papers.
And in reality, from a budget standpoint, we budgeted for full staffing, so we're really not out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's been a no-brainer.
You kind of explained that if the driver that's picking up the second route makes more money than what that route was budgeted for, we might lose a little bit of money, but it could be completely the opposite as well.
Sure.
So if it's a driver that actually is a newer driver, they actually would be saving some money. That driver salary schedule is very complicated.
Complex.
Very complex. But this would be to their advantage, and they are stepping up and putting a lot of extra time in for us. All it's very difficult.
Need a motion to approve the rate of bus driver pay for a regular route driver and a sub or a second regular bus route to be paid at their regular route pay plus mileage, if that's applicable.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we updated the bus route, on an update to the school board election, finally being handled by the county clerk, Jared and I have been playing phone tag for 4 days. And as soon as I get a hold of him, I will give you an update.
Did we ever find out, can he tell us no?
I think at this point, he sort of has.
Well, I know, my point is there any legal justification for it?
I'm not sure.
Just
I'm
that
gonna
we've always
pry.
let him say no.
I'm gonna pry on him a little bit, and I'm gonna try to be soft and make it his decision. We'll see.
Mr. President, why would we give that up?
To make it easier on our central office staff, they're opening special days throughout that Christmas holiday to merely sit there all day and wait for an election candidate to sign up. And his office is open those regular hours.
And honestly, when I filed, I went to his office expecting that to be where I
Well,
was
that's where everybody else
supposed to
filed.
go.
I probably won't vote to give up on election authority. I just want to tell you that in front, because we're an independent body, and I realize the convenience aspect of it, and if, as a board member, if I need to obligate myself to help with it, I will. I don't see the benefit besides convenience.
You also could have more consistency as far as the practice, more assurance that everything is done properly by someone who is doing all of the elections. There'd be some consistency there where if we would have different people, administrative assistants throughout the years, it just would be more secure that it was being done ethically and correct.
I know that Nancy talked, we kind of talked about it last year, and she talked to him, and
I talked to him twice.
he was resistant, and one of his comments, I believe, was he was concerned that if he took them over, it would be an inconvenience to the Altenburg district, because they would have to drive up here at 5. But I think their board could vote to keep them there.
Yeah, well, and I did explain that to him, and, because he also was worried about the other school boards in town. I said, they're not elected though, I mean, they're just, so, I mean, we had a good conversation, and I just got his pros and I tried to throw some cons, and, I mean, we talked back and forth, it was good. And he did offer to, if we felt that the reason we wanted to give it back to him was we didn't know how, the filing went and everything, he did offer to come over and meet with the people that would be handling it. I mean, he's cordial. And at the time I spoke with him, his assistant was at a state conference, and he felt that there would be some direction given to them from that state conference, and he hasn't gotten back with me since, so, and that was probably,
At this point, it's only been phone tag, so I can't say one way or another how he truly stands, but if we need to have a board discussion whether we want that to go back to him, we can do that before I talk to him.
Jane or Nancy, have we not, in the past, I mean, I think I remember where there was a
Well,
I mean, it was just stated that, okay, December till such a date, you could turn in your application, or then there was a week, and then it started up again.
Basically, you wrote the filing period around the regular office hours of the central office staff.
Yeah, have we contacted the Secretary of State and asked what we're
Is that what you're saying?
Well, I thought it was, okay, how long is school out? 2 weeks?
Pretty much.
That there was a week in there when you couldn't come in.
Right.
But I don't think the state changes the
Right,
final date.
right,
There's a 3-week window period.
right.
They won't extend it into the first week of January. You have to
December
have,
30th is the last day to file, and you have to be open until 5 PM for any filers.
Okay,
We would be closed on that date, so
Yes.
now we have to be open for that.
that's the part that has changed. Okay.
Should it be on that one day? Is there other days, just that
No,
one day is the
if-
convenience issue?
If we're closed, as the district is closed, we can put that in our statement, but you
The last
have
day
to
you
be
have to.
open that last day.
So we're just asking about one day, basically.
well,
But we're closed all the other days, so if
Yeah, I was just
someone
gonna say,
wanted to
'cause
come
isn't it like
file
the-
during those times,
like the
we're
8th.
closed and they would be open.
8th through the 30th or something like that? I mean, everything after the 19th, you're down, right? That whole week of Christmas, 22nd through the 26th, and then the 29th and 30th.
We're there on the 22nd, that is an open day.
Oh, okay, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you'd lose 6 days that, or somebody'd have to be here for 6 days that they normally would. And we're not gonna have them come in on Christmas or Christmas Eve. But, well, I mean, to me, it's wrong that they include the holidays as part of the 3 weeks anyway. Because everybody automatically loses those 2 days.
Well, and I know Jared said there was some talk, I guess, to the clerks in the state to change those dates to make them, like, the filing dates would be maybe the last week of November until like the,
Yeah,
I don't know,
right,
15th
right
or
after
something
Thanksgiving,
of December.
that time frame in between.
Yeah, so that you weren't over those Christmas holidays.
That'd be better if
But I
they're
don't,
open
you know,
every day.
I don't.
Well, didn't it used to be 4 weeks? It did bleed into January, didn't it?
Yes, it
And then
did.
they've cut it back to 3 weeks, I think, is
Yeah.
part of the problem. I think it did go into January previously.
So it was easy to take that Christmas break off.
You didn't, yeah, you still had time after.
A
Because
week,
you could think about it then over Christmas if you wanted to.
Well,
run or not. I mean, it was-
and you still had a week to do it after Christmas break, and it.
I think
no
that's,
hassle
I think
for
that's what
anybody.
the change was, is complicated.
This makes for a tight window for the public.
I mean, when I signed up, I was leaving, I signed up Christmas, I left on vacation, and the last day was what, like, if I was going to sign up, it had to be that day, because it was holidays, and then the 30th, I mean, I
Yeah.
think if you have an option to have it at a location that is going to be open, whether or not, it's,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we really gain anything by doing it ourselves. I mean, we're not losing anything by giving it our, keeping it even, but I don't think we gain anything necessarily.
I agree with Glenn. It's just, I'd come do a couple hours myself on New Year's Eve, if that would help.
I will not be able to do that. I will be at home with kids because they're at school, so I can't.
Offhand, I don't know.
Well, don't you have to have somebody that's a notary?
Yes, it has to be notarized.
Well, I say, I think it has to be the same person because
Which I'm not. No. So that might be an issue.
Because of that consistency piece, I mean, it's fine that everybody volunteers, but I think if you were talking about a consistency piece, when a candidate comes in, they need to be handed the folder and explain the folder in the same manner. Otherwise, you may get a different presentation than myself or Kevin or whoever is the next candidate. It needs to be a very consistent. So we need to have a designated person to speak to each candidate that files, or they're gonna get a different presentation. Because nobody comes in and gives you the Board of Ethics book, and she gives you the application, and she gives you the, I mean, there was a whole folder. I got it twice.
Right. If you have a list to go through, here's the ethics book, here's the.
Like I said, at this point, I haven't talked to her, so I can blow it off as I'm telling him happy birthday and checking on his kid. We went to school together, but I think last year we had talked about it, and when it came up again this year, I was just gonna reach out and see if I could do anything, so that's the reason I did it. So, I don't know if we wanna vote whether to proceed to try to move it to the county clerk, or we wanna keep it, or how we wanna proceed from there. At this point, there's really no update.
Okay, so who took care of it last year?
Stokey. That's who I followed.
Yeah.
That was a backup.
So being Notary Public did.
I don't know how Dodie handled that specifically. She was a notary, so I assume that she notarized it after. I do not know the answer to that.
I'll call him and see what he says, and we can discuss it.
I mean, it might not be moving anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, he may just tell us no, I think. The board refresher training, number 8. Every year we have that hour or so piece that we have to watch the videos. In the past, we've done it together. To me, the only benefit of that is it sparks some conversation amongst us after watching the video. That's up to you all whether we want to do it as a group or as individuals. There's no benefit, I think, either way, as far as MSBA is concerned.
I'm already done.
Okay.
I'll do it as a group.
Yeah, I like
Yeah, we'll just schedule a group.
Terry and I do not.
Right, you don't have to do the board member refresher. I think you'd be welcome if you wanted to, but you'll have that additional, you'll have the pieces.
We got plenty of.
I'm sure you've started. So we'll try to schedule a date for the group. Usually start at 5:30 and try to get it done before our board meeting. Grab a signature.
There's no date.
Okay. Superintendent report.
Are we doing the meeting on the 22nd at 6?
I'm fine with that. It gets us home a little earlier. 6
The meeting
o'clock
on
on
the
the 22nd.
Can we do that at 6?
Depends on football, right?
I should be fine.
Sorry, just picking on you.
Yes, ma'am. If our coach could tell time, I think.
It's the better part, dark Friday that part.
It's 7 now, so.
You'll lose a half hour. You said 15 minutes.
Okay, Mr. Hayden, I think you're up.
Very similar to what we've seen the last couple months. I wanted to share with you, about 2 weeks ago, did attend a career fair at SEMO University. Accepted 3 applications, or resumes, from prospective teachers. And March 5th, they will be having another career day specifically for teachers, and that will be returning back down there in March. Sorry, it's not a little bit bigger. But we will be deleting a couple of these, but we also will be adding a couple here in closed session, so that very similar to what we've had the past.
You said you got 3?
3 resumes, that's for future possibly. Some were just a junior, one that's going to be graduating at Christmas time.
You ever have any bus driver career fairs?
I
Sorry, I was teasing.
offered free, Starbucks gift cards, and actually I took hats. So
I'm just teasing.
I told them if they do, they will have to drive a bus for 3 years, but they have to be 25 years. But, no, that's the programs there. We'll be filling a couple of those here in closed session, but also adding a couple. So.
The attendance report.
Attendance report, I kind of switched it up a little bit this month, and what I did is to add, let me increase that. There we go. What I did, I took the day after our last board meeting, which would have been September 11th through last Thursday. And so that was the attendance since our last board meeting, so went with that. First of all, I had the primary center here, and overall at 96, and then it did from the beginning of school on August 20th through October 2nd. So not quite small enough to, oh, yep, we can. So 96.26 there for overall for the first almost 2 months of school, or about 7 weeks. And I think you guys and gals had an opportunity to look at this already, but just kind of go through that. Also elementary, and just kind of give you a different report. And I plan on doing that probably monthly if you guys and gals are okay with that, and then do it overall, switching up just a little bit there. But very pleased, and I can't help it. I'm going to do this at every meeting. The folks that are sitting here in the audience, which will be our building administrators, emphasize their importance and what they do, reaching out. We did send out before the year started. They're doing a great job of contacting our parents to let them know. And Mr. Tucker, I'm going to put him on the spot. Thank you. The first Friday of each month, as we did last year, there will be an attendance go out. If your student has perfect attendance, that's awesome. Take them to Sonic or somewhere, or McDonald's for a prize there, so to speak, or reward. But we're doing that the first Friday of each month, just so parents and guardians are aware of that. So just kind of scrolling through each one here. And very pleased. And these guys and gals are working very hard. Thank you, administrators, for what they do each and every day to make that work. So.
I have a question about high school. Is it, I've just noticed, 9th grade is always so much higher and then it goes down. Is that because we can drive ourselves? Is that because, like, why does, the older they get, the attendance just starts seeming to fall in high school? And I'm a high school mom, so I'm invested. I mean, I'm asking for multiple reasons.
First part you asked about the drive, you mean that
they're responsible for getting
driven?
themselves to school? Like, is it student responsibility, do we think? Do you think there's a reason?
As a student progresses through high school, there are other demands on their time and energy. You know, when they turn 16, they get the car, now there's a job, now there may also be extracurriculars and things like that, so there are more days where maybe they just choose not to come, or they have other obligations that keep them from coming. I will say it's not always that the freshman is the highest class year after year. Sometimes it's the lowest, which was the case 2 years ago. They were consistently the lowest all throughout the year. Each class kind of has its own personality and issues that we deal with, and it kind of varies.
I have a 15-year-old who every Tuesday morning asks if he can just go during the second hour instead of first hour. So I understand, I just want to know.
That extra 48 minutes of sleep, yeah.
Apparently it means a lot.
Yeah.
What we've noticed, like at the elementary between third, because third is always better than fifth, is the older the kids get, parents let them stay home by themselves and it doesn't inconvenience them if they're sick. So like for me, I have a 3rd grader and an 8th grader. The 8th grader's sick, I just say, here Noah, here's some water and some Tylenol, calling if you need me. If Piper's sick, I gotta take off work to stay home with her, and so we notice as the kids get older, it's much easier as a parent just to leave them at home, and it doesn't inconvenience you, because you don't have to take off your time.
Is it, so on our annual report, we're graded as far as the 90 for 90, right? Or 90 number. It's not actual attendance, it's actually 90% what percentage of the kids are there. That's that number at the bottom, right? Attendance status percentage, the .86, the.
And as we've mentioned, we still are not sure if that is accurate.
Yeah, which, and I get it, even just the general attendance, it's still, we're graded as a total of all school buildings, right? I mean, is there a possibility of just getting a total from what the averages are? I mean, in this case, it's pretty easy, because they're all pretty much right at 95 and 96.
I can get that for next month, Mr. Robinson, if you like them to.
I'm just
If I'm
curious.
understanding correctly, you want to
I wanna make sure
overall,
we're tracking what we're,
overall attendance is what you want?
yeah,
I'll
and,
be glad to add it to the report, sure.
I mean, these are gonna be the numbers we report on for the 90 for 90, right? Yes, no?
They're still trying to figure out what 90 of 90 is if the Dead Sea at their level, because I
Okay.
don't think anybody's come up with how that formula is calculated, because they can't tell us how it's calculated.
And I get that, but there's no gradiness on it.
I'm sorry to be.
No, I get
I mean,
it, but
that's
they
what
still
we-
grade us on it, so this is the number we turned in, is my point,
Right.
right? Is whatever that number is. We have a different number we turn in.
They get their tools from our system, from our student information system, so.
So they get all of the attendance
They get all the
information from
data
every
from
kid,
that data,
and they
yes.
pull it somehow.
Yes, yes.
So it's not a number we report to them,
No.
they pull the
They pull it
information
from,
from,
it's part of our core.
So this is our best
From
guess.
our core data, yes, that's.
Okay.
what they're
Interpret it
giving
how
us.
they want to.
That makes
Yes,
more
so-
sense, thank you.
Over to financial report.
Okay, so I'm really glad that Mr. Freeman is here so that I can give him credit where credit is due. Wish Lacey was here because she also was part of the creation of our own dashboard. But it looks pretty familiar, doesn't it?
So we don't, if that falls apart, we don't, it's not, yay.
Yay, yay. So, Mr. Freeman took the time to sit down with Lacey and just kind of try to understand what was currently on our dashboard with the from Frontline Company, which did a direct pull from our books. And Lacey and I both were very frustrated with Frontline, and I haven't used that dashboard for several months with you guys because we rolled over to the new school year. We've never have got it to calculate accurately. And so out of hearing that frustration and what we were doing, Mr. Freeman said, hey, tell me what you want. And this is what they were able to create. And it is identical. And it gives us 3 years again. Because it was very important to me for transparency that as a district, we aren't just looking at a single year to date, one at a time, one small, little, narrow glance. I want to be able to see where we are comparatively to the prior years. So again, it is separated out. The first one would be the revenue, local revenue, state revenue, and federal revenue. Gives the current year, which is the dark green. We're going to shuffle around some year 1, year 2, because year 1 to me and Lacey should be probably here in the middle maybe, because it's the prior year 2 we didn't get before. So this is our first show of this. So very proud of it, because it still gives us the same information. We want to know what % of the budget we are in. So every month, we're looking at a 12-month budget. We want to know, like, where are we in comparison to this particular month where we were the prior year? And the same thing for, I'm sorry.
If you don't mind me adding, Dr. Jones, if you're wondering the federal revenue, that was from the MAPCO grant that was approved a couple of years ago. That's why it's almost double. This is the final year of that for the Pearson expansion program. Sorry about
No,
that.
thank you. And the next, just like we did before, we split it out by expenditures so that you can see all the different expenditures and broke those down into objects such as the salary and benefits, purchase services, and supplies and materials. So we will continue to play with this, but I'm just so very grateful that his expertise with Excel and the graphing, and then Lacey's unbelievable knowledge of how the codes all pull and match together. So very grateful to have them on my team to help me with this, and I'm excited about what else we're going to get to do with it. I scrolled mine with the screen scrollers. Sorry, I'm trying to run 2 computers.
Any questions or comments about the current financial report? Next piece is those tornado recovery expenditure piece.
So we've been running you a separate ledger so you can just kind of see some of the expenditures that were tornado related. those are starting to get to be a lesser of a list. What I think I would like to present to you is moving forward that total overall, so it could reflect the 5.5 million that's already been expressed to us, so we can watch and see how that's going out as a total number. What's coming in as a large number, and what's still remaining to go back out. Instead of the items line by line, I think this is going to get we're just about done with all the small things. We've replaced pretty well everything, minus some picnic tables that I didn't realize flew away and never came back from the tornado at the elementary playground. There's a few other things, obviously, but it's going to start getting smaller, so I'd like to take us back to that big picture and start tracking those big numbers that are coming in from those insurance advances. So we're seeing and tracking that.
You envision that looking like a balance sheet almost, or?
Yeah, possibly. Just the revenue flowing in and the expenditures going out and in comparison. But if you've got other ideas, I am open to other ideas as well.
I'm still gray on that, like, we approved a bunch of bids, but yet we hadn't paid some of them, or we're paying them out of our balance and still waiting on insurance to pay them.
Something like that.
Okay.
It's a bit
So
of
yeah,
a shuffle.
seeing that all together would be
Yeah.
helpful.
It's a bit of a shuffle because it's all in our book. But now we have a whole separate pot that we're tracking on top of everything else.
Next is the board newsletter. Lots of dates on there, everybody read through it, any questions or concerns?
Good stuff. This looks great. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Lots of info. I'll click on it real quick.
Yes.
Sorry.
Where are we doing on fire? Where are we doing on fire?
Old middle school practice field by the middle school parking lot. If you all get a chance, this will be linked for you all to see information from this. This is,
Yeah, it's really good.
it's really great, it looks good.
Next is our spotlight on technology.
John, it worked earlier. Maybe working. We're good.
I sound better without this.
Got a camera, we'll go full screen.
That's not a me problem.
It's a me problem.
Like a tech problem.
Judgments, anybody?
Well, what about next week,
Yeah,
make it a
we're
little
next week.
bigger?
No, it's that one.
Obviously, a little bit.
All right, here we go. Okay, one more time.
My name is Mark Freeman. I am the new IT director for Perryville Schools. I'm very excited to be here. I'm from Detroit, the Detroit area, so car metaphors kill in Detroit. So I'm going to try it here. If we are a vehicle, if what we do here at this district is a vehicle, we all have different jobs, different parts of that vehicle. Like, for example, the teachers would be the engine. They drive what's going, right? They are what pumps and makes us go. Their facilities group would be the powertrain, where the wheels meet the road and moving us forward. Administration, the school board, they would be the ones steering the wheel and hitting the gas pedal, so what direction and what speed are we going? And then IT would be the dashboard. It would be all the electronics you see when you're driving a car that connect all those pieces together and make them work together. One of the jobs of the dashboard is to collect data and put all the data in a usable format for the driver. So for us at Perryville, that data would be from the time a parent registers a child through our tool, Infinite Campus. And then that data allows us to help the student move forward from things like what class they're in, what homework assignments, what teacher, how their testing goes, all the way through everything till the very end where they do their placement tests or their ACT tests or things like that, and even beyond when they have transcripts. So our job is to not only collect that information, but also make sure it's safe, available, and that it moves forward with the child to make sure that we as a team can help that child.
Infinite Campus has been amazing. It allows us to take attendance every day, so we know that the kids are here and that they're safe. It allows us to communicate with parents. It allows us to be able to have all that student's personal information. In case of an emergency, we can contact their emergency contacts. We can have all those pieces. It'll send emails to parents if students are absent, update on grades, and so it's really good. It's kind of like one-stop shop for all student personal information, which is just so helpful that we only have to go to one spot.
But we're not just about data. We also have a lot of the pieces of the vehicle that work together that we're responsible for. To give you an idea, here in the district, we have around 7,000 devices that connect to our networks.
The Promethean boards, which are great for like interactive lessons, games, they can literally be used as a whiteboard. We use those. And then we also are one-to-one, so every student does have a Chromebook, and so like we saw today, like you can have students doing interactive games on both the Promethean board and their individual Chromebooks. But by students having their own Chromebooks, that's allowed for us to really promote digital citizenship on teaching kids what appropriate is with technology. You know, once something's out there, it's out there, making sure that they know how to like type a paper and use Google search and do all those pieces. And so we want to be able to give them those skills that they can use later in life.
Technology is a huge part of our day-to-day. I'm in both the middle school and high school, and through our library, we help support the student Chromebook issues, in addition to most of our curriculum being on the student Chromebooks. Sometimes those devices also just don't work, and so our technology team is really fantastic at responding to our work orders. I feel confident in telling a student I'll have an answer for you by the end of the day, if not within a couple of hours.
Definitely, we have substitute teachers in here. They are over here in a drop of a hat to get our subs in and get them ready to go. They help with kids' Chromebooks if they go down. They help with teachers. They're always willing. I mean, we have probably one of the best technology departments I know of, because, I mean, they help us constantly.
The IT team we have here is fantastic. They are like the pit crew you would have at an Indy race. They're fast, they're efficient, they know what they're doing, they're experienced. It's been a great privilege to step in to the role with such a great team and to help them as we move forward into our next challenges.
Very nice, thank you.
No.
Need a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Session's adjourned.